Bonjour, bonsoir, dear friends. I'm with the beautiful, irresistible, gorgeous Anna Brittain, the Executive Director of Napa Greens. We're so fortunate, dear friends, today because we're going to start the year with the sixth principle that guides Napa Green and the overall strategy of being a better citizen, being a true steward of the land. And I'm thrilled because we're going to start with pillar number 1, which is very meaningful. But now,
first,
the liquid
energy
of gold, the purple gold. Santé.
Santé.
And Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you so much. And dear friend, this is so fundamental that we start the year really focusing on the environmental issues. Everything dealing with the environment is the essence of who we are. This is why we are in the fabulous theater of nature here at Raymond Vineyards. And you could see the incredible commitment we have to alternative energy.
Yes, we'll talk more about that.
Yes, so maybe santé, generations, for the generations to come, honoring the past, right, and the future.
Yes.
So tell us about the 6 pillars, fundamental for everyone.
Yeah, so for years people have been saying, especially in the wine industry, sustainability is confusing. What does it mean? What's the common definition? What are you working on? And I finally thought last year, there are 6 core pillars that any leading sustainable wine growing program is working on. So it's a way you can think commonly if you're looking at the different programs out there, okay, what does this mean? What are they working on? And so really briefly, those 6 pillars are energy efficiency, water efficiency, waste prevention, pesticide phase out, social equity, and then all of that folds into systematic climate action. So those are the 6 pillars that we're going to be walking through here with Jean-Charles, moving forward through the year. And we're starting with the first one, which is energy. And why is that? That's sexy because there's a lot of dollar signs next to energy.
Sex equal dollars.
It can.
Ooh la la.
Yeah, there's so much savings to be had in terms of improving energy efficiency, and then all of that has a climate connection because producing energy also generates emissions that contribute to climate change. So the savings here are myriad. In over 5 years, we've saved our Napa Green members more than $4 million on their energy costs.
Which is huge
when
you think about...
And more, and counting. And so I was going to give an example from Raymond, because Raymond, here we are, one of our certified leading members. And it doesn't sound so sexy, but one of the things we do with our wineries is what's called a resource audit, where we baseline everyone's energy, water, and waste, and we track that over time. And that's very important. You can't manage what you don't measure, right? That's a really key piece. And so we know, don't worry, it sheds you in a good light. We know that Raymond's using about 6 kilowatt hours per case of electricity, and anything under 10 kilowatt hours per case is excellent efficiency. So you guys have excellent, absolutely excellent efficiency. And why does that matter? How might we compare that?
I was worried for a second.
I was like, what is she going to say? We know there's other wineries in your same size range using about 16 kilowatt hours per case. I promise there's a good bottom line here. And so that's like, well, why do we really care? That difference of 10 kilowatt hours per case, if someone's producing, say, 100,000 cases of wine, that's $240,000 a year in difference in electricity costs.
Wow.
There's a lot of dollar signs next to this. And so we hope what then happens is we show someone, we don't put the name out there, but there's a little dot on the scatter graph showing Raymond using 6, and they're at 16, and then they ask, what can we do to be at 6 and save ourselves $240,000 a year?
Wow.
So the dollar sign.
And that goes for wineries, but that goes as well for individuals.
Absolutely.
And I think it's very important, dear friends, you're all from all around the world. You can hear the beautiful birds of our theater of nature.
Yes.
That's exciting. That's what, being Napa Green or green in general attracts insects, birds, animals, the real fauna of the world.
Yes.
But explain to everyone what they could do at home to be similar to Raymond as a production winery facility.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the same scale, right? But there's a lot to be done at home just in terms of, again, like you're, keeping track of your electricity use. A lot of the utilities now, including PG&E, will show you how you're doing relative to an efficient home. So you can see, how am I stacking up, and then think about what you might be doing differently. Obviously, really simple things, turning the lights off when you're not in a room, setting the thermostat. This is a big one across homes and wineries, setting the thermostat really at the right efficient level. So in the winter, that's generally about 68 degrees, and in the summer, it's about 72, and not just letting people fiddle with it helter-skelter and having that go up and down.
But that's so important.
Yeah.
It's a detail, but every details and every different steps adds up for all of us to something enormous.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, another one across homes and wineries you might not think about is hot water. And that's usually driven by natural gas, which is actually a heavier carbon footprint in terms of the emissions associated with it. And so you want to make sure that you're maximizing that around hot water. So keeping that hot water temperature at about 120, which is pretty common at home. But we've also been able to work with a lot of wineries to lower that temperature when they don't need it super hot for the sanitation. Want to stay safe, have it at the right temperature for sanitation. But when you don't need it super hot, we've had some of our members save thousands of dollars just by adjusting their hot water. So it's simple. It's a lot of awareness and monitoring and maintenance pieces.
So in terms of the energy, what else would you say and witness for wineries at large, and what we can all do to improve this dollar sign, but as well our conscience?
Yeah, well, another thing I was going to bring up, perfect, because we're standing with the solar array in the background, is we have almost half of our members do have their own solar array, and that's absolutely fantastic. But we always work with our members to think about, you don't want to solarize your inefficiencies. This is a term we have. So you want to make sure that you're as efficient as possible, which you are, right? 6 kilowatt hours per case, so that you really reduce the footprint and the cost of your solar array, and you get as much energy out of that solar array as possible. So I have more and more people coming to me about installing solar, and we want to see that, but we also want to think about how can we make sure you're as efficient as possible before you put in that solar array, and that has a whole bunch of other economic benefits as well.
That's really exciting. Now, when we think about energy, now we just moved into 2022. How do you see, beyond all of that, of what we could do within that first pillar, other suggestions for all of us that are very critical, and including us at Raymond, that we should eventually embark into, to think 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, because that's very important. Yeah. Mother Nature is millions of years of age. Yes. We need to think very long term.
That's true. I love that. Absolutely. Well, I can think of two kind of big opportunities that I think are really growing to share. And one is, we're really lucky here in California. A lot of California has what's called community choice aggregation. Doesn't sound super cool, but it really is. It's these places that are purchasing electricity on our behalf that has more renewables. So here in Napa County, we're lucky we have what's called Marin Clean Energy. Wait, we're not in Marin, but they are providing electricity for Napa and Solano counties as well as Marin. And so they guarantee that at least 60% of the electricity they're providing is from California wind and solar, which is a lot higher than what PG&E can guarantee. But then what's also really cool is a lot of these programs, including Marin Clean Energy, so look at your utility and see if this is an opportunity for you. You can opt into what's called Deep Green, and then you get 100% with just a signature, with just a paperwork change, you get 100% of your electricity from California wind and solar. There is a little cost premium, right? All these things come with a little cost premium. It's about 1 cent per kilowatt hour. But this is a way you can, without installing your own solar array, you can immediately have 100% electricity. And that kind of movement is growing throughout the US towards that greener electricity grid. So I think that's a big one in terms of the long term. The other is electric vehicles.
That's right.
Right? You've got one, I've got one.
Yes.
And more electric vehicle chargers, because I think as do I, that we need more chargers. That infrastructure is really growing. So you've got one out here, but especially when you have a really green electric grid, electric vehicles make a lot of sense. And all of that relates to energy use, to gas use, to fuel use, to the entire reduced footprint in terms of our energy use. So I love seeing that grow. We're seeing more and more chargers here in Napa County, definitely.
And I'm excited as well to see a lot of vehicles and machinery and equipment we use in the vineyards that is becoming, we think about the Monarch tractor, but many other. Would you please touch on that as well? Because I think it's something, if you have a winery, if you're involved with wineries or agriculture, or any type of agriculture you can imagine, you could be much more efficient too.
Absolutely. And there's also a movement too, regulatorily, towards moving towards more electric machinery. So a lot of this gets to it being proactive. Get ahead of the curve rather than reacting later. But yeah, we have a partnership with Monarch Tractor. So exciting. It's 100% electric tractor. There's a few of those kind of coming out on the market right now, but they're really doing the pilots to just show how effective this is across a range of terrains. And then what's really exciting about their tractors in particular is that they can be run without human operation, right? They can just be out there doing the work. Talk about energy, right? You can distribute your work energy a little bit differently if you have a tractor out there that can be running solo. So that's really exciting, those moves towards electric vehicles across agriculture, not just out on the highway.
That's fantastic. So any other advice before we visit again, dear friends, for pillar number 2? Anything else on pillar number 1?
Yes. Well, I would say too, just lastly, that we need to really think systematically. So another thing to make the connection of in terms of energy is also with water. We don't tend to think water and energy, but it takes so much energy to treat and heat and transport water. So if we're saving water, which is another pillar that we'll talk about, we're also saving energy. So it's really about thinking very systematically in the whole operation.
All that helps us as well to make great wines.
Exactly.
What do you think of
Increases the quality.
generations?
This is amazing, and just generations is perfectly on point for what we're talking about.
We are on point for the generations to come. Dear friends, let's make sure we preserve, let's make sure really we project ourselves for the next 20 generations. And this is how we raised in Europe. This is how now we raised in America as well, to think about, down the line of who will take care of this planet and how we can leave it better than we found it. And that's the key.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Such
and next
a
time,
fun day.
Waste management.
Waste management. Be ready. This is what...
Doesn't sound sexy, but we'll make it sexy, I promise.
For sure. And we'll talk about all the things we could do with our waste.
Yes, exactly.
Which are very essential.
Yes.
See you soon.
Thank you.
Cheers.